Okay, so just to bring everybody up to date, for this year, we are going to be focusing on one of the 12 powers a month, integrating it somehow into the month. And we started with the power of love in January. And first, I want to tell you that Unity as a whole is doing this, but we like to march to our own drum beat, and so we're not actually following how they're doing it. So we're doing it a little differently. So we started with love, and for me, that's because I think that that is the basis of everything in our lives, knowing that God is love, that we are made in the image and likeness of God, that we are love, that love is the one and only presence and power, that we are here to be that pure expression of love, and that love always wins, and really to presence that in every aspect of our life. And then last month we talked about the power of wisdom, and we talked about that if we sometimes go forward with love without wisdom, we can get into some precarious situations, but if we go forward with wisdom without love, that can seem very sterile and very cold. So for this month, we're talking about the power of faith, and faith is represented by the disciple Peter, and the placement in the body is in the pineal gland, which is right behind your forehead. Winifred Hausman, who wrote the book Your God-Given Potential, a Unity minister, said that the location of the faith center is significant because it is in the center of the head, between the ears and the eyes. When we put our faith in that which we see with our eyes and hear with our ears, we are using the faculty in a limited way, and the results will come accordingly. That, my friends, is called intellectual faith. However, we can center the faculty of faith in our inner vision and our inner hearing, developing this faculty through prayer to know the potential that God has given us. And she finishes, and when we do, our results will express the higher realization of our spiritual nature as its highest level. Faith is directed by our spiritual nature from the Christ center at the crown of the head. And those of you who come on Wednesday nights, sometimes we do the chakra meditation, and we open up that chakra, which is the crown chakra, and we open up this chakra, which is the third eye. And so we want our faith chakra to be directed through our crown chakra, through the highest possible realm of intelligence. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, says, intellectual faith admits doubt and hope of fulfillment in the future. And wouldn't we agree with that? From an intellectual perspective, from looking at the world through appearances, absolutely, there's doubt. Spiritual faith includes unfailing assurance and immediate responses. Faith in the reality of the invisible builds a real abiding substance in mind and in body. All kinds of ideas grow quickly when planted in this rich substance of the mind. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of that which we cannot see with our physical eyes. So today is really getting out of your mind and getting back into the one mind. So in our newsletter for March and April, I shared that I was going to be starting a series on prosperity and in particular on financial prosperity. So we are going to talk about faith and financial prosperity. Now, the reality is that we use money in our world, and that we're in all different places with how money shows up in our lives. But I want to share with you a quote from Abraham Esther Hicks, because I love this. She says, "You are right when you think that money isn't everything. You certainly do not need money to have joy in your experience, but in your society, where so much of what you live is tied to money in some way, most of us associate money with freedom. And since freedom is a basic tenet of our being, then coming into alignment with money will help you establish a balanced footing that will be of value to you in all other aspects of your experience." And I love that because, and I've talked about this before, that anything that we want that looks like it's out here is really about some quality of being that we want to experience. And when we are looking at desiring a greater financial flow in our life, it's really about freedom. It's about the freedom that we will have to do the things that we want to do, to give to where we want to give to travel, to do all kinds of things. And so really, this is about experiencing freedom when it comes to especially our financial prosperity. So, I am going to speak very honestly and very openly with you. This is called Real Talk. So this past weekend, we had, not this weekend, the weekend before, we had our annual board retreat. And we always wait and do our February board meeting at our retreat. And when it came to our time for our financial report, well, it didn't look very good. And it didn't feel very good. And in fact, for years now, we have had to dig into our savings in order to make it year to year. If you were here for our annual meeting, Jim Katsu is our financial thank you, our treasurer, shared that we went into this year with our budget knowing that we would probably have to take money out of our savings. We don't want to have to think that, but we went into it knowing that. Now, here's the thing for me that I'm very clear on, because I feel that individually, if we are not prospering financially in our lives, then I am not doing the job that I am here to do. And that is to empower all of us to live these truths. And I shared also that I got very clear this year that I am here to empower and not to enable. And so my goal is to really begin to empowering us to live these truths so that the majority of us, if not all of us, will eventually be to that place where money isn't a worry anymore. How many of us money is a worry at certain times? Yeah, I'm going to say for most of us it is. And so I want to empower us to live these truths so brilliantly and so fearlessly that is no longer the case in our lives. So I had to sit with this and I had to ask, okay, well, what's missing here? Why is this still happening for us? So before I go into that, before our meeting last weekend, I had already decided that I was going to do this series on prosperity. And then I listened to a talk that was given by Reverend Dr. Gary Simmons out of Unity of Spokane. And it was so interesting what he had to share. And for me, you guys, this is like, I'm so happy that there are others who believe the way that I have believed for a long time. And so essentially, he said that most churches in North America are on decline. And the reason for that is because of the funding. And he said it's interesting because the first thing that churches do when there's a lack is that they do a series on prosperity on Sunday mornings. They do prosperity classes, and they ask the congregation to give more money. So first I want to talk about the prosperity classes. And how many of us here have taken the prosperity classes, like the 4T or things like that? Okay, so for those of you who haven't, most of these classes, when you go into this, it's like a 10-week commitment, and you are asked to commit to give 10% of your time, your talent, and your treasure to the place that you get your spiritual nourishment from, which, oh my gosh, that happens to be the church. And at the end, and the church then also tithes 10% of that to the author of the prosperity program. Now, I'm going to share with you, there's amazing, life-changing information in these classes. But I'm also going to share with you that throughout the years I've been here for 27 years, and what I have seen with these classes is that every so often, somebody sticks to that 10% tithing, but most people don't. And the reason for that is that we cannot go from a consciousness of lack to all of a sudden, boom, you're put in a setting where now you're giving 10% of your income and maintain that if our consciousness hasn't gotten to that place. And I love, because Dee and I have talked about this for years in the prosperity classes that she has done. We don't quote unquote require that. We're never going to require anything like that anyway, but we always look at it as when you go into these prosperity classes, give what you can feel good about giving and stretch a little bit. But, we've never been, it has to be the 10%. So, my real talk. I believe that tithing is an outdated practice. Tithing was originally brought into being because the church and the government were one entity. There was a theocracy, and it was run by the priests. And so people had to tithe, and they had to tithe 10% of their agriculture. And if they tithed with money, they were penalized. So I think that's interesting. When the church and the state separated, the church kept this practice of tithing as though it was law. And there's beautiful law that underlies it, and that's as we give, so shall we receive. The consciousness with which we give is what we is how we kind of help things come back to us, is how I'm going to say that. You tithe 10% to the church. And for a lot of churches, that works great. And for most of the churches that works great for, there's a lot of guilt in that. And we're not about guilt. And we're not going to be about guilt. Also, in a lot of churches, there are hierarchies of tithers. And those who give the most are often treated very differently than those who do not give as much. And even in some churches, if you are a non-tither, you cannot be involved in a lot of their programs. So I would like to see us just get tithe out of our vocabulary, because I think for most of us, it brings up this instant, oh my God, tithing. And not only oh, is she going to start asking us to give more, but it sets up a kind of a guilt thing for us anyway, because if we think we should be 10% tithers and we're not, then we've got this whole thing of I'm not doing it good enough. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're doing it good enough. You are enough. You're good enough right as you are, right where you are. And I will never tell you that you're not doing it good enough, because I want to empower you. And you don't have to be a 10% tither in order to be spiritual. Did you hear that? Yay! Yay! You don't have to be a 10% tither to be spiritual. Yay! Okay, and I love, because Gary Simmons takes it to, instead of giving to, that we're giving as source. We're giving from the consciousness of that. And so where do we give, quote unquote, this to? And it's always been taught, give to the person, place, or thing that feeds your soul, feeds your spirit, gives you spiritual nourishment. And I love it, because he says, how is it possible that any one place can be the total source of one's spiritual nourishment? How can I stand here today and say, hey, you guys, whatever you give, you need to give it just to the church because we're the source of everything? Obviously, I think as members of this church, as friends, yes, it is part of what we do is we give to support the mission of Unity of Springfield. But we don't give out of obligation, and we don't give out of guilt. That we truly do give as source. And, throughout the years, I've had so many conversations with people, because people have said, so if I give to a charitable organization, another something, that doesn't count as a tithe. And very people who are very married to the tithing concept say no. And I've always thought, what? Because whatever we're giving to you guys, it's all God. And it's really about the consciousness anyway. That's what it's about. It's about the consciousness with which we give. And if we're giving with joy, and we're giving with love, and we're giving with the knowing of our source, then it can only come back to us in that way, pressed down, shaken together, running over, and yes. So Gary says, give as source to those things which you would like to see flourish. Give to where you want to make a difference in the world. And I will tell you, conscious giving to anything and anybody will absolutely change your life. It will. Because you step into the principles, you step into the laws, and you know that you can never outgive Source. And Source will open up the floodgates of heaven and pour you out a blessing so big that you won't be able to even store it. That's what Malachi 3:10 tells us. So in contemplating how to move into this then, I realize that the first place to start is always the first place to start. And that's with our very first principle, and that is God is. God is the one and only presence and power in the universe and in my life. This aspect of what we're going to talk about today is restoring our true vision and getting clear on what is it that I believe about the nature of God. We talk about this and we intellectualize it, but we must bring it to a deeper realization where we live from the knowing of what it is that we know to be true about the nature of God. Is God the one and only presence and power in your life? Is there any idea of lack? Not enough? Because I'm going to tell you, that's not God. So is God truly the one and only presence and power in your life? God is divine intelligence. God is love. God is creator, absolute creativity. God is infinite. God is eternal without beginning and end. And one of the things for us to really get today is God is substance. That which is seen is made out of that which is not seen. Hebrews 11:3 says, by faith we understand that the entire universe was formed at God's command, that what we now see did not come from anything that can be seen. If you did not get to hear the talk I did last year on the parable of the leaven, I encourage you to listen to that because I talk a lot about the substance of God in that. We live and move and have our being in this amazing, invisible substance, but we're so used to seeing with our physical eyes and thinking with this mortal brain that we forget that, and we look at the world around us, we look at our bank account, we look at our income, we look at our retirement, and we say, oh my God. Wow. Lack and not enoughness, right? And yet, here we are, and God is, and we're in the midst of this, and it's infinite substance, it's unlimited substance that we live and move and have our being in. Oh my God, that's where we want to be. From the 12 Thrones by Unity author Jim Lewis, he said, the world of appearances, which seems to tell us that there are many substances, was actually formed out of one substance, and Jesus understood this. You know, when we look at some of the things in the Bible, we question, did they happen, did they not? But I think we always have to be open to, you know what? They could have. And so Jesus turning the water into wine, or, multiplying the loaves and the fishes, because Jesus was at a high level. He was at the highest level of consciousness where he got it. He understood it, and he lived from that. And he said to us, what? All these things you can do, and even more things that I'm even here showing that you can do. And he was showing us some pretty awesome things, wasn't he? And we don't even have the faith to think we can do a little bit of that, especially if we're living in lack. We don't have that faith yet. It's okay, because if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, but I'm hoping that today we're going to put some nourishment on that seed, and we're going to help that seed to grow. He goes on to say that reality is not in the world of appearances. Reality is that which cannot be changed. Appearances can be changed, and we should refer to them as facts and experiences. We've talked about this before, that there are facts of this worldly, earthly realm, but then there's truth with a capital T, and that truth will always trump the facts every time. When someone tells us to face reality, they usually mean to what? Face some outer situation. But in truth, reality is God. And to face reality is to face the inner presence of God. And I would say the everywhere presence of God. It is to be receptive to God's guidance and direction. To be receptive to truth as it is revealed within us, even though the realization conflicts with what we have been taught on the human level. It's really being able to see with that inner vision, even when things look out here or they are the way that they are out here, we are called to see with this inner vision. So I want to tell you a little story about Hagar. And she had her infant son, Ishmael, and they were in the desert. And they ran out of water. and her infant son was dying, and she was just at her wit's end. She was tired, this mother's heart, and she couldn't bear to watch him die, and so she put him under a bush. And then she sat down, and she just started crying. And in the story, it says that an angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, Hagar, you have nothing to worry about, because your son is going to grow up to be a great leader, and he is going to rule over a great nation. And as she kind of got quiet and centered with herself, and she opened her eyes, off in the distance, she saw a well of water. Now, here's the thing about that story. That well of water didn't just suddenly appear out of nowhere. It was always there. But she had to open up her inner vision in order to be able to see that it was already there. And how many times in our own personal lives, and I love this, you get a new car, and all of a sudden you see a gazillion of that kind of car. Was it because everybody went out and bought the car the same day as you did? No. It's that we expand our vision, and we expand it so that we can see in the physical realm things that we did not see before. Because when we're in a consciousness of lack, and we stay in that consciousness of lack, what do we see? We can't even see everything that's around us. We aren't open to the opportunities that are around us. We're not open to things just flowing into our lives. But when we, and I loved it, you called it sacred sight. I love that in that song. When we have that sacred sight, then we're able to look beyond the appearances, the evidence of what is seeming real today, and we're recognizing that there is this greater realm that is invisible. But in this realm that is invisible is everything that you could possibly need. Everything that you could possibly need. So I was listening to a talk this morning, and I loved it because the minister said, declare with me, I am the richest person in the world. Okay, so let's say it together. I am the richest person in the world. And just let yourself kind of be with that. And where are you with that? And does it bring things up? Because there is absolute truth to that statement. That you are the richest person in the world because you have all of the truth and substance that you will ever need. No more will ever be given to you because it's all here. All of it is here right now. You are immersed in it. You are the richest person in the world. And so that takes me to the second part of this, which is the second principle, which is I am. I am not all that God is, but all that I am is God. And that's absolutely true. And so one of the things that Gary Simmons talks about is that part of our challenge with having a greater experience, and this is not just financial, this isn't anything in our life, but we have a consciousness of not enoughness. And one of the biggest areas where we have that consciousness is with ourselves. I am not enough. I am not worthy. There is not enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough friends. I don't have enough energy. I don't have enough. But basically it comes down to I am not enough. And I want to tell you that you've just simply forgotten that you are. That by virtue of the fact that you are presenced here in this realm of this world, you are enough. And you are worthy of all of the good that is here for you. There's nothing in your past that could keep that from you except for your belief that that is so. And sometimes it is hard for us to really line up with the truth of our being that I am enough. I am worthy. Let's say that together. I am enough. I am worthy. And it is so important for us to get these first two principles that God is everywhere present. I live and move and have my being in this divine substance. It's unlimited, and it is responding to my consciousness. So if I'm going out into my day and I'm going out with this energy of I'm not enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not educated enough, I don't have enough money, then what is that substance? How's that going to manifest in our lives? As not enough. But when we move back into the greater truth of our being, which is that you are enough and that you are worthy of all of the good that God has, all of it, and you go out into your day and you start looking and seeing and saying, I have enough. And I'm going to tell you something, you have more than enough compared to not enough. It's just we have that tendency to focus on what we don't have. And the more you focus on what you do have and you are grateful for it, and this is where you bless it, you confer prosperity upon it, which means that then that energy grows, then this substance that we live and move and have our being in is responding to that energy. And guess what? Pressed down, shaken together, running over, and oozing out. And the thing is, we have to keep on keeping on. My friends, we can't miss a day. We can't let one day go by that we're not conscious enough to remember who we are. We cannot let one day go by that we are not in the awareness that I am the richest person in the world. I live and move and have my being in this unlimited substance that is responding to me, to my consciousness, to my energy. And so I'm going to make it some really good energy. I'm enough. I am worthy. All of God's good is coming to me and through me now. It's powerful and it will change your life, but you can't be hit and miss with this. You can't, as I've said many times, leave this information here in the sanctuary. Go out and start thinking lack. Go out and start speaking lack. I can't afford. How does that make you feel? Not so good. Change that languaging. You know, today I just choose that I'm not going to do this or get this, but at some point I know that I'm going to be able to because I live in, I'm the richest person in the world. You've got to change that energy, and you change it with these first two principles. God is, and I am. And so your homework for this week is, first of all, wake up. We talked yesterday in our emotional intelligence. The first step is to be self-aware and start your day. And many times throughout the day, your job is to say, I am enough. I am worthy. I am the richest person in the world. And we're going to preface that with, I live and move and have my being in divine substance that is unlimited. So I'm going to have you repeat after me. I live and move and have my being.
I live and move and have my being
in divine substance,
which
is unlimited. I am enough. I am worthy. I am the richest person in the world. And so it is, and so it shall be. Amen and namaste. Namaste.